All right, last but not least in this module, we're going to show you how you can build your own corpus. Perhaps more important is why it's a good idea to build your own corpus. Then we'll talk about how to build your corpus and how to use what's called a concordancer. So why build your own corpus? Why is that something that is useful? Well, with the previous corpora and the tools that I've shown you, it's stuff that other people have prepared. They they have used general corpora that the people who design these tools hope will serve a plethora of different users. And what happens with academic languages, as I mentioned in the first video, is it's very formulaic, but those formulae tend to also be very discipline specific. And so what may be useful or commonplace or frequent formulations, um, lexical or phraseological formulations in my particular discipline may not be this as useful in another discipline, academic discipline. And so if you can create your own corpus, create your own collection of texts, then you can explore language that is especially useful and used in your particular discipline. And that's what we're going to do right now is talk about how to build your own corpus. And we'll start with uh, these three steps, which is first selecting your text. That's very important. Then simply converting those texts into the format that's readable by the typical software. And then a word about organizing those. So first, with respect to selecting your text, let me just say that um, there is no consensus about how big a corpus should be. Some would argue that the bigger the better. The more text, the more data, and therefore the more patterns you can see. But another argument can be made that the more specific your discipline, more specific the lexical field that you're investigating, the less actual information you need. So one, just a kind of general rule of thumb, uh, probably anything less than 50,000 uh, is less than ideal, but you don't need to go into hundreds of millions of texts. Having said that, I'm going to show you in a minute how easy it is to collect those texts. All right, so let's close this here. So most of you already have lots of articles in the form of PDF. Um, if you've done your master's degree, if you're working on your PhD, there's no question that you've collected. You have in your personal library. Sometimes you have a virtual library through a system like Mendeley, which I can talk about in another video. But today I'll just look at simply Google Scholar. And so if I want to find look into a particular um, area within my discipline, for example, collocation in collocation use for learners of English, let's say. And then what I see here is a nice collection of articles. I mean, they'll be in the thousands, and I can narrow this down if I want to the the articles that are um, more recent. If you are logged into the UC system, you can generally download those PDFs, and then it's just a matter of clicking on those, and then downloading those. However, there is a problem: is that if you download um, this this PDF, it's not readable by the software that we'll use later. So the first step is to collect the texts the texts that are most relevant to your discipline. Um, most articles are in the range of between 5 and 7,000 words. So try to collect at least at least 10 of those articles to get some meaningful data, I would say. But the more, not the more the better, but larger texts, larger corpus size would be even better. And once you've downloaded those, you're going to do the following. Okay, so here is a collection of PDFs that I've organized. I do recommend when you do download your PDFs, organize them and label them in ways that will be interpretable by you. That way, when you see lines, corpus lines in your corpus tool later, you'll be able to understand where they came from. And in my case, I've ordered these PDFs by the year of publication, volume number, issue number, and because I was looking at different English varieties, I have them labeled by country. But whatever label you find uh, useful for you, just create a system that works for you. But keep it organized is my tip. At the moment, these PDFs will look pretty much like um, what you're familiar with. And so in this format, they are not readable by the corpus software that you're going to see. So what I like to do is convert them to TXT. If you Google PDF to TXT, which is sort of raw text, that's the format that you want. There are lots of free tools. I like to use this one because you can drag and drop a lot of them all at once. That's my favorite one. That's my go-to one. So I'll just grab a bunch of these and drag them over here, and you can see that it does a really good job of converting it really quickly. Don't know how many I dragged over there, but it was probably more than 10. And then once it's converted, then you can download all of them all into one zip file and then pretty easily um, put them into a file that you can retrieve later. What you'll see is that you have, I've created a folder here for this corpus. What you'll see here is that your files will be in TXT form. If I open this like this, all you see is this raw text. This is what you need in order to have it be read by the software we're going to download in just a minute. Right. So we've looked at selecting your text, converting them into TXT, and organizing them. Now we're going to talk about how to analyze your corpus. And we're going to use something called a concordancer. What you're going to do is you're going to download a piece of software. It's free, called AntConc. Then we're going to load our files. We're going to generate, I'm going to show you how to generate a frequency list and why that's useful. We'll look at collocation, and we're going to look at what are called Engrams. Okay, so let's move to the software. This is software that has been written by a researcher named Lawrence Anthony. And so that ANT and ANT is the reason why it's called AntConc, Anthony Concordancer, or Anthony's Concordancer, or AntConc. It's a freeware tool, and we're going to go to that homepage now. To find that page, I just Google AntConc. It's usually the first hit here. Click on that. And you just choose which platform you're going to use, so Windows or Mac or Linux. And you can, I think with Mac, sometimes you have to authorize you have to unlock or give you have to have administrative or administrators access to unlock its use. But it's pretty straightforward. All right, so I've already downloaded uh, this software. All right, when you open it, it launches very quickly, and this is what the concordance here looks like. You just get this empty box at first. I'm going to make it nice and big. And here you have several options: concordance plot, file view, clusters and engrams, collocates, word lists, and keyword lists. We're going to focus today on generating word lists. We'll look at collocates and concordance and engrams. First thing you got to do is load your files. So you go here to File, and you choose which file you want to open. I'm going to go to my docs. And here I have my corpus, and then you can control all or select all the files, or you can select individual ones, whatever you want to do, and then open. Once you have that, I have here what I can see is every single file that's been loaded into the concordancer. And if I click on it, I don't see anything here. I see the total number of files only. Okay, so what do I do now? Well, first thing you want to do is go to word list, and I'm just going to simply hit start. And here is what this tells me. It tells me how many word types I have in here. So how many different words, not how many words total, but how many different individual word types. So the word the up here is 54,000 times, but it only counts as one word type. So I have 36,822 different words in these 191 files, 191 research articles. And I have over 1 million word tokens. So that is the word, how many total words are in all of those files is over 1 million. Okay, so that's a decent size corpus. It's fine. This is a food science corpus, so it's quite specific, so it should be okay. And then over here, you see the most common words. And in any corpus of English, first word is always going to be the. And then you have all these words where you might think, well, that's not very useful. But what you notice is that number 10, unsurprisingly for this corpus, is the word food. Now that is not what you would expect in a general corpus like the ones that we saw in the previous videos. If I click on this word food, what's generated is a quick concordance, a keyword and context concordance. And this is why I told you it was important to organize your files. I can see with each one, I can see where each one came from, each line. Moreover, I can click on that node word in each line that I'm interested in, and I can find what it is in the source text. That is not something that you can do very easily in the other tools that I showed you earlier in the previous video with the corpora that's not come from you but from others. Okay, so getting back to the word list, if I keep scrolling down, I see that I start getting to less and less common words, even though these are still quite common. And I begin to see maybe more specific words that are more useful for my particular discipline. And I can export that word list if I want. I can just save the output, and I can name it word list or whatever I want and save it wherever I want. And I can, of course, convert that into a Word document or whatever I want later. Okay, now getting back to the word list. So get back to the word food again. We saw that we can generate a concordance, but I want to show you what you can do to search for collocation. So for that, I click on collocates and hit start. And here you see that I have set, this is kind of important, the span to show me only words that come to the right. So if I want to see only the word that immediately most frequently follows is sort by frequency, most frequently follows the word food in this corpus, just immediately to its right. I see that food science is the number one thing, then food chemistry, food quality, food policy. Um, and if I wanted to change that to see what comes to the left and nothing to the right, I would see a lot of different things in food, of food, but also processed food, household food, global food, and so on. Now, if I go back to the the um, the nouns or the words that immediately followed. All right, finally, we're going to look at what are called engrams. So for this, I'm going to click on engrams, and I'm going to look for engrams that are just two words long. They're called bigrams. And this will show me something a little bit different. So I'm going to click on that. Takes a little bit longer. All right, and what you see here is a list of the most common co-occurring uh, lexical items. So just like with collocation, you want to be careful to make sure you have it sorted by frequency. There are other options with probability and things which are kind of more advanced and not really within the scope of what we're talking about today. And just like with the word list, you find that there are a lot of words at the top that may not be that interesting, but if you keep going down, you see that you get more and more specialized. So you see food science and based on food chemistry, food quality, and if you just keep going down, you get more and more um, specific terminology that that might be useful. And at any point, if any of these, if you want to click and see more information of how, for example, added to is used, or excuse me, how um, another good example here, closer to the top, the fatty. You can see here that um, fatty most commonly occurs with fatty acid, and then you can click on that. Whoops. Uh, well, you get the idea. um, beef burgers. Makes me hungry. You can see how that collocates with other items. And you can see the source file as well. Now, if you went back and you change the settings to 3 or 4, you can get different options here. But anyway, you get the general idea. So that's how you use a concordancer. And we'll have a few exercises for you to play around with your own. And it all comes down to you becoming fully fledged language detectives. So hopefully the tools that we presented in this module will help you get you on your way.